Welcome, everyone. We're absolutely delighted to have a very special guest on the Inner Origin podcast today. We have Tony Kemp, an incredible ambassador for Inner Origin now, particularly in New Zealand. Tony lives and resides in New Zealand. He had an incredibly distinguished rugby league career as a player, coach and administrator with over 35 years experience in a high-performance sport. Really interestingly, later in life, Tony has also qualified as a functional medicine health practitioner. We're absolutely delighted to have his partnership with Inner Origin because Tony is everything that Inner Origin stands for in terms of health and wellness, absolutely having an incredible, positive and strong mindset and really believing in the value of community. So Tony, welcome and thank you so much. We're so excited to have your partnership with Inner Origin.
I never get used to hearing all that sort of stuff, Sally Ann, especially around the footy career. But it's been a great journey, and I'm on board. Thanks very much.
Yeah, we're absolutely delighted. And New Zealand is a country that we opened pretty well just on a year ago now, and it's something that was very important to us. Inner Origin has, as you know, global ambitions, but I think Australia and New Zealand represent purity and wellness, to right around the world. And it was really important to us, extend what we're doing to New Zealand before we head on overseas. Now, Tony, I'd love to, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say it's a fantastic concept in and around health and wellbeing. It's sort of taken the world by storm, and having something, especially the truth on label stuff, where you know exactly what you're getting these days in and around environmental toxins, especially in every walk of life. To know that Inner Origin a champion a truth on label process, and especially an opportunity for people to go out there and get those products. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely, we believe, very, very needed. And tell me, throughout your incredible rugby league career, was nutrition something really important to you while you were playing?
Yeah, look, I guess as I got on in my career, and especially into my coaching career and my high performance background, I didn't really understand too much about the importance of nutrition when I was a young person. Especially these days, it's paramount that if you are wanting to perform at the highest level, especially around recovery and for sustainability, then your nutrition plays a huge part in that. So I'll tell you what I do. I wish that I knew what I know now way back then. It's been a long time. My boy's just turning 22 coming up, and I look at him, and this was right in the throes of my career back then. And if only I knew some of the things that I know now. I got diagnosed with Crohn's. It makes a hell of a lot of sense to me now that when I am fatigued and tired, and way back then I used to get fatigued because I had Crohn's at such an early age, that my nutrition would have been a hell of a lot better and would have actually aided me in my performance. So as far as nutrition goes now, I think, with my functional medicine background, especially in coaching and understanding what that functional medicine realm is trying to create, especially in America at the moment, it's slowly making its way down through Australia and into New Zealand.
Yeah.
It's a viral way of communicating what we need to do in the future, and I see Inner Origin being a big part of it.
Well, tell me, with functional medicine, because it really interests me, it's an integrative approach, isn't it, to wellness? Like, how would you describe the functional medicine practices?
Well, I'm really lucky, my partner, she's a functional medicine doctor. It was her that pushed me towards functional medicine coaching. We were up in America 3 years ago, and I was just traveling around with my backpack basically while she was going to all these functional medicine GP conferences. And she came out of talking to Sandra Schoenborn one day and said, Tony, you should really have a look at this functional medicine coaching. Your background, I've spoken to the people that are running it and told them a little bit about you and your background. And she said, you'd really suit something like this. You're passionate about the community. You really like working with people. And it sort of got me thinking. I did a little bit of homework. I got talking to Sandy and the girls, and one thing led to another. And before I knew it, I was doing this. I was doing podcasts, like podcasts across to America. You know, this Kiwi bloke and amongst all these women. But I was really lucky. You know, I had a doctor who's passionate about functional medicine sitting right next to me, doing the medical side of things, and while I was doing the coaching side of it. So for me, it's, you know, if I was to give an elevator sort of pitch on it, it's about not fixing a symptom. It's about finding the root cause of what's actually going wrong with you. That's the functional medicine side of it. The coaching part of it is helping someone find their way through their own motivation, a way to carry on and live a healthier and a better well-being, you know, both mentally and physically lifestyle. So, you know, I look at the sort of upbringing. I'm a Polynesian. I'm Māori by descent. We're overrepresented in obesity and you know, lots of diabetes and just the deprived state of our community in New Zealand, and just thought that, you know, having the knowledge at least would allow me to talk to my own community to say, hey, there's a way out here, and of course partnering up with the right people to help you share that message is paramount, as you know, Sally, as this all starts to really grab hold down here in the Pacific and starts to grow.
Yeah, and inspiring people before they need to take action is the ultimate goal. But as you said, and even in your own experience, you know, it's not until people often are unwell that or don't feel great that they think then to do something. And, you know, it must be deeply passionate for you to inspire, you know, people to take that approach on, especially with the diabetes epidemics and things we're talking about.
Yeah, look, you know, it's funny. I was dialing in, like I said, to all these podcasts, and all the girls were saying, you know, I've got this condition and I've got this condition. I'm sitting there going, man, I'm the only one without a condition, you know. And at the time, I was having some real issues with my my gut, you know, and I had been having them for years and years. And my partner said, look, we need to go and get you sorted out. You know, we need to go and examine what's actually going on with your gut, and one thing led to another, and as I came out from my checkup, the doctor said, oh look, I've seen thousands of these, I'm pretty sure 99% that you've got Crohn's, and you've probably had it since your 20s. So wow. It was a bit, like I said, you know, it was a really interesting journey for me, because as it was like the dominoes were falling in the correct order for me. Yeah. And I could actually I felt like it was like a Dalai Lama type scenario for me, where, man, there's something going on here. The universe is trying to tell me that, you know, I need to sort this sort of stuff out. And, you know, I went and done an elimination diet. I've got that many injuries, you know, we'd spend another half an hour talking about it. But one of the biggest issues that I got is inflammation. And that's based around my career and the amount of injuries I've had and the amount of operations I've had to fix my body, and I couldn't put this hand behind my head while I was doing this course, and I got on an elimination diet, and it was all about environmental toxins and cutting out all the bad food that you're eating, and, you know, I was trying all sorts of things to get the swelling out of my knees and so forth. And I remember on about day 7, I had an itchy back of my head, and I was lying in bed in the morning, I went like that, and I didn't worry, it wasn't the itch, it was like, this hand hasn't been behind my head for so long, and the pain in my left shoulder had sort of dissipated, not 100%, but at least 80%. And that sort of, you know, I was doing the course, and that started to really make me sort of sit up and listen and take a further look into this sort of stuff. And like I said, I'm really lucky that I've got my partner that sits there and talks to me 24/7 about it. And so we've been on this journey about, you know, we're constantly talking about where we're going next to see if we can get some more knowledge on this sort of stuff. And then you know, a friend contacted me in New Zealand, said, you know, have a look at Inner Origin. I contacted, you know, we made contact with you, and one thing led to another. And you know, for me, I'm seeing it all around the world at the moment, where it's the way of the future. People are going to start to realise that, you know, what we were taught by the governments over so many decades isn't really the way that we should be living. And I'm still learning. You know, we watched a documentary the other night, and it just made so much sense. And I just hope that if I can give a little bit back to my own community in and around those areas which are heavily representative in the health sector, I'd be more than happy. So yeah, it's I guess I'm still learning.
It sounded like it's all unfolded for you in the right order, and you know, science is always evolving, information's always coming, new information's coming through. I'm like you, I would just love to see people embracing their curiosity about their own wellness. And, you know, if they do that, we can all be on a continual path of improving our wellness and understanding our bodies better and the way things impact our bodies. But I think there's that level of ignorance that, you know, we learn what we learn either at the home environment or school, and we're like, well, that's all we need to know. And some people just never take that any further. And, you know, that's what we obviously would love to inspire to change, because, you know, you can feel better, you know, in your day. And but everything plays a big role. The mind, obviously, you've got a strong mindset being such an elite, you know, athlete. And I'm sure you impart a lot of that knowledge to people in your coaching as well.
Yeah, look, the coaching part of it was, again, I wish I'd done a health medicine coaching course before I'd done a coaching course, because it actually taught me to listen. You know, I was one of those coaches that said, you know, you do it this way. You know, and a lot of coaches that are listening to this would actually understand what I'm saying. You know, you go out there and you do it this way. And after weeks of listening to how you actually coach people into wellness, it was really about taking the time to actually hear what people are saying and find out what their main motivations are to getting well. And, you know, I've got some very, very good friends at the moment that are unhealthy. They take the mickey out of me a little bit, because, you know, here's this big tough rugby league guy that's doing a coaching course with all these women, and next minute he knows all this medical stuff, but it hasn't stopped me from trying to create an understanding for them, to say, you know, if there's some little things that you could try and do yourself that actually made you feel better, would you actually try them? And I've got a really good mate at the moment, and he's really sick at the moment, and I've given him some books to read, and, you know, I'm talking to him about, you know, steps that we need to take, but, you know, as they teach you, it's about making him find that journey himself. But, you know, that's the sort of the stuff that I really like doing. And you're right, Sally, you know, I've had the background in playing and coaching and creating national teams and cultures and environments. And it's sort of transforming that into my everyday life to people that I really care about. And that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that you can share in that way. And I find that so inspiring, and we love that within our Origin, you know, incredible ambassadors that we have. I think that's one of the biggest gifts that, you know, people like yourself bring, because there's the wider learn so much from the discipline that you've applied in your life, the motivation, the self-starter, everything that's required to perform at a high level. And, you know, I love to see people in any walk of life, whatever they're doing, perform at their very best, because that's just so much pleasure, you know, to put everything into something that you're choosing to, you know, commit your time to, but to play all out and be the best that you can. And we really believe in that. And so I love to hear, you know, people like yourself sharing that wisdom. What was the highlight of your rugby league career? Was there one game or one season or something?
Oh, look, the highlight for me was playing for my country. You know, my dad always said that I was good enough to play for New Zealand. And unfortunately, my dad was really unhealthy. He died when he was 41. He didn't actually get to come to Australia to watch me play in the NRL or get to. He actually got to a test match, but he didn't get to the majority of the 25 test matches that I played. So, but, you know, if there was a pinnacle for me in my career, it was actually reaching that height where you were regarded as one of the best in the country. And it's for me, it wasn't really making it. It was like who you were representing when you made it, and all of the hours that your parents had put into you and your friends had supported you, and, you know, and so on, so that you could actually wear that black jersey. And I talk to a lot of people these days in and around goal setting and trying to achieve what, probably the unthinkable, and believing that, that if you seriously think it is attainable, it's no pie in the sky stuff. You actually can attain it. And I've got numerous stories where, I was a stay-at-home kid. I don't know what you call that in Australia, but it's, your parents were living off the welfare, and we had numerous family members living with us, and it was a really tough environment to get brought up in, and there's a lot of kids still doing that today, and to sort of reach the pinnacles where I am. Look, I'm sitting in the Sofitel up here in Noosa at 50, you know what I mean? I was able to build a career that took me away from an environment that gave me a way of living that I became accustomed to, which I never knew you could achieve, but now it's part of my life. The most important part of this journey now going forward is, how do I want to live that for the rest of my life? Knowing that I've battered my body from pillar to post as a player, but knowing that the knowledge and the literature and the wisdom is out there in this domain around the well-being and in and around efficacy, especially around food and products and environmental toxins, that, I used to think, I'd be quite happy to make it in 60 or maybe 70, and I'm thinking, man, I've seen some pretty good-looking 80-year-olds who are active and really, really getting on with their life, and they've made some really, I guess, from their first 40, 50 years, major changes that haven't really been that major when you think about it, and gone on and are living a really fantastic life. So, we're
healthily at that age,
Yeah, we talk about it all the time.
I'm going for 150.
Yeah. Oh, look, I know everyone wants to live forever, but it's a guarantee that we won't. I can tell you that right now. But it's how you want to spend the rest of your life. I don't want to. I see so many people that get to a certain age and they can't do the things that they want to do, and I just don't want to be that person. And I want to be able to show people that, actually, look, I've got no cartilages in my knees. I've got a slip disc in my back. I've had reconstructed parts of my body, but I'm still moving really well, and it's not because I'm taking a tablet. What I mean? So it happens. I've seen it happen. I've been witness to many people happening, and I'm witnessing it myself with just a slight change in direction that I was used to.
Well, you're going to inspire the masses again. I've got another question for you. When you were talking about the pinnacle of your career, you said something about your dad always believed that you play for New Zealand. How important is it, do you think, that people have someone who believes in them? Like I always say to everyone, it costs nothing to believe in others, but it can be the difference between someone then believing in themselves. It costs nothing to give it away.
Well, there's two things that come to mind. The first one is vulnerability. When you're wanting to be an achiever and a high achiever, there's that personal vulnerability that you allow other people to come in and tell you that you can't achieve that. Having someone like a peer hold you accountable and believe that you can actually achieve that is something that's probably, for me, was a driving power between making it and not making it. And I'll give you an example. I was 14 at the time when my father was telling everyone in my hometown that I was going to play for New Zealand schoolboys. And I was ringing wet. I would have been 50, 60 kilos. You know what I mean? And these guys I was playing against were 70, 80 kilos. And I would look at him going, "You're mad." And I was 14. And no matter who we spoke to, he would say, "I'm telling you now, in a year's time, this kid will play for New Zealand schoolboys and he will travel to Aussie with the New Zealand schoolboy team." I could still hear him telling people. And I'd sit there going, "Man, you're embarrassing me, Dad. I've seen these guys play. They're way bigger than me, da-da-da." Anyway, a year passed. I go to the tournament. Guess what? I'm in the tournament team on the plane going to Aussie. And by the time I got there, he had drilled it into me that I just needed to believe that I was good enough to do it. What I had to do was show him that I was good enough, because he was holding me accountable around my talent. And I think what you're asking is, it's really important to have that peer saying and believing in you, because they're the type of person that I would generally go to 9 times out of 10 as far as people in New Zealand. We've got over-representation of tall poppy syndrome,
Yes.
I'd much rather go to the person that believes in me than the person that doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's so important. And I always say to everyone, if you've got a big goal, go and find someone who believes in you. You know, if you don't have anyone around you who does, just go and find one person. But even more than that, I always encourage people and say, believe in each other. Like if someone sets a goal with you, believe in them. Be that person that shows the belief they can do it, because that can be all the difference.
Just to talk about that goal, you know, you just reminded me of I used to write in a diary when I made the New Zealand team, and I thought, oh well, you hear about these diaries that people were writing, and I used to start writing in this diary, and I went to Australia. That's where the penny dropped for me in the schoolboy trip to say that I wanted to go and play in the NRL. That's where I just made my mind up. That's what I'm going to do. It's 15. You know, no one believed me. My teachers didn't believe me. I dropped out of school. I write in this diary, and anyway, I went on. I had a fantastic career. I played 14 years as a professional, played for my country, ended up coaching the NRL and so forth. And when I got home, I built in a house, and I'd have all my boxes in Australia that I'd brought home. I'd left them over there for a number of years, and all my furniture and stuff. I should have thrown it in the rubbish, to be brutally honest. Not knowing what I liked, 10 years later to what I bought was different. But inside one of these boxes was one of these diaries, and I opened it up, and I'm reading this diary, and I open it up, and I go, I'd want to be a professional rugby league player playing in the toughest competition in the world in Australia. I was 15 when I was writing this. I want to own a 2-story house, because I used to live in a state home, which was like a little box. I own a 2-story house. I want to build it myself, and I want to own it, because I didn't know about mortgages back then, but I knew that you paid someone to own a house. And I said, well, I want to own it. I want two, and I want a happy wife and 2 kids. And guess where I was reading it? I had just finished building a 2-story house on a 5-acre block that I'd paid for, and sitting next to me was my boy, and my daughter was inside the house. So when you're talking about goals, if you actually believe it with a dead set desire in your mind that you will achieve it, you will achieve it. It's funny how the universe works, and I tell that story on a lot of my motivational speaking circuits that I go on, especially to young people if they're setting themselves going into university or on a bit of a challenge, saying, look, if you set a bit of a horizon and you start heading towards it, but you know what's at the end of it, don't be surprised if you hit it, because if you believe in it as strongly as I did, you'll probably get it.
That's a magnificent story. I love that. And it's so true. Sometimes it just takes the time to articulate it, what you want, and be clear about that. And it shows up so many times. It shows up.
Yeah, goal setting is a massive part of life, in anything, whether it's in your personal life or your work life or your friendships or, in your health and well-being, setting attainable goals and pushing the boundaries a little bit out. The biggest thing I realised with goal setting was one specific word, which was sacrifice. And I always say to my kids, my son, I left school, I walked out of school when I was 15 because I want to be a professional footballer, but my daughter's a psychologist and my son's in his last year of law. Heaven behold, they asked me what it was like to go to uni. I had no idea. But what I say to them is that along the path of life, you will get to a stage where you need to sacrifice something. And that something is going to either take you down further towards your goal, and if you don't sacrifice that, it's going to take you further away from your goal. But I also say to them, but what will come back in return will be tenfold. And I only look back on my own life and think, some of the things that I get to do now, and I haven't told half my mates the stories that I get to see people and positions and that, because we come from a small town that, whatever they'll say, yeah, whatever, mate. It's really because I made such a heavy sacrifice early on that got me to this stage now. So if people are setting goals, yes, there will be some challenges. There'll be some bumps in the road, but as long as you keep pushing through those and only see them as a bump in the road, you'll reach your goal. It's basically how it works.
I love that. That's what I love to hear from people like yourself. And, because I'm such a massive believer in having those goal setting and sacrifice. It's behind that sacrifice becomes so much joy, and the privilege of experiencing the journey. As you said, it's not just achieving the goal, but the journey along it, those bumps, you grow as a person, you become better, as a human. And, I love that journey. I'm going to let you go really shortly. I just wanted to ask you something else. You mentioned that you have Crohn's disease. How do you live with that now? And obviously you were playing with it too.
Well, now I don't feel so guilty about taking an afternoon nap.
That's a good thing.
I used to really battle with that. Crohn's is a autoimmune disease, which it's like an engine working all the time on the inside to try and to dissipate inflammation. And I really get it. When the doctor told me how it worked, and the pennies were dropping, going, man, I no wonder I couldn't keep up with those guys on a 400. And I used to get to training some days and I didn't want to be there, and people would call me lazy, and here I am carrying an autoimmune disease and not knowing anything about it. So, I guess the first thing is to accept it. When I was actually doing some learning through this coaching course, and Crohn's was a part of it. And I had watched a number of podcasts on the severity of Crohn's and how debilitating it was for some people. And when the specialist, when I finally came out of a little bit of a sleep, said to me, hey, I'm 99% sure you got Crohn's, I was packing myself. I thought the worst. I didn't really understand the full intent of having Crohn's, but I sort of had seen enough of it to get scared about it. So it took a month for them to diagnose me with it. Within that month, I did a bit of reading. My partner, we talked about it. She explained to me the ins and outs of, two ways of looking at it, by changing your diet or getting on these autoimmune drugs, and the negatives of the drug against the positives of good diet. And to be honest, the way that I manage it is through my diet. And I already knew that.
That's amazing.
Because the diet that I had, I would wonder, I'm sitting there going, now I know why I was on the toilet all the time when my mates were out having fun. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have been doing that with them. And then this food would trigger that response. So the elimination diet really nailed it for me. Dairy was a massive no-no for me. Gluten's a massive no-no for me. Sugar especially. I crash and burn on sugar, So it's really about taking what you've learned, listening to your body, and giving it the fuel that it needs to survive. And touch wood, I've been diagnosed with it for 3 years now, and I feel way better now than I did when I was playing. And I just wish I knew that now, Yeah. So I'm talking to a couple of people at the moment and helping them through their own journey. The problem that you have is that you can tell people that there's a way out, but it's actually them believing that is a way out and finding that motivation to try it. Once they get, like I did 7 days down the track, and I could put my hand behind my head, I was sold. But it's getting them to that stage. It's the hardest part.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But you are just an incredible inspiration. You always have been your whole life, through your career.
Thanks a lot, Sally.
And now in work that you do for community. I know you give a lot back to your community, and work a lot in there as well to inspire everyone to better wellness and better way of life there as well. And still giving so much to rugby league, and now into the area of functional medicine and wellness for people. Inspiring people to live great, after 40 and 50 and beyond into their 80s, what a goal that is. And, even to, live life the way you do, working with knowing that you have Crohn's disease, and what an inspiration that is. Because a lot of people let a disease become them. And, as you said, you learn to accept it, you learn to live with it, and now you do things to make yourself feel better and live well with that, and that too is an inspiration. The mind can make it a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, and that's the, you've hit the nail on the head there. You either allow it to consume you, or you get on and do something about it. And my life has always been like that. I could have allowed life to suck me up and just make me another statistic, but I've had too much success being outside the box, and I just don't want to hop back in that box. I want people to join me and join the journey. And I just want to say thanks to Sally for your visit to New Zealand and talking to me and getting me to understand what's going on again and so forth. And I really look forward to the journey. It's I see the good that this can really do and really help people. And I really encourage people to just kick on with it, believe in it, especially, truth on label is really important. And people will get to know that, or it's going to come out more and more into the future, and Inner Origin are leading the way. So well done.
Thank you so much, Tony. You're amazing. We're so happy to have you on board, and enjoy new stuff.
Cheers, Sally. I will. I love it.
All right. Bye. Welcome, everyone. We're absolutely delighted to have a very special guest on the Inner Origin podcast today. We have Tony Kemp.